Hey there, welcome to SharkCast Pod, a podcast dedicated to the greatest sporting club in the history of the world, the mighty Cronulla Sharks. This show is brought to you by Dyson Logistics, the Royal Mighty Yacht Club in Port Hacking, and Jason Hawes at Cripps and Cripps Real Estate. My name is Sam Shinazzi. I'm an OG from 2015, supporting the team for a lot longer than that. And on mornings like this, it makes everything worthwhile because we beat Manly and it was awesome. And on the other end of this podcast is our Monday morning correspondent. He's got a show dedicated to himself, catching up with Kieran over coffee about Cronulla. Some people mock that title. I love it. And I love this guy. Kieran, you've been AWOL for a little bit, doing your thing, which you do. Welcome back. What a great morning to have you back. 30 points to 14. First of all, how are you?
I'm fantastic. I think we were just talking off air about how weird it is to watch the Sharks play at Brookvale and to get the win after so many years of it being such a place of fear and desperation. So I'm feeling good. Like the Sharks are playing good. We've got a home game coming up this week. So yeah, things are good, mate.
Sharks sit in fifth place. They're 6-4. So I love that little gap there between the positive and negative there. 6-4, beautiful. Let's keep going. Big game coming up. We'll talk about that later on as we go along. But Kieran, Sharks win 30 points to 14 at Brookvale Oval, as you said. Fitzy can't do anything but win there. Same with Nicho Hynes. Who impressed you? What impressed you? Give us some initial thoughts.
I thought, first of all, Nico was really good. Seeing Nico put that kick in for Ronnie, I thought
Oh,
that was just a piece of confidence that we wouldn't maybe have seen from Nico a few weeks ago. And I think the last three games, Nico's really dug into the line. He's rocketed up the charts on try assists. I think he sits in second now in the NRL. Yeah, he's really buckled down and really stood up. But I think the player I enjoyed the most was probably Fanua Blake. Every time he took a hit up, he was taking 3-4 defenders. Every time our attack looked a little bit stagnant, he was the guy that was kind of get things going. So I thought he
yeah.
was really good. But lastly, was a guy I probably didn't expect from was Billy Burns. I thought that was definitely his best game, and probably that game paid for his entire contract for the season. So Burns was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, the coach has got a few decisions to make when everyone's fully fit. That's for sure. We can get into that as we go along as well. But that includes Billy Burns being in the 17. I'm not suggesting he should take over Teague's spot, but he definitely has put his hand up to get a full-time spot. Just looking at what you said about Nicho Hynes, and he currently has the second most try assists, only behind Isaiah Katoa from the Dolphins. So Nico's got 12 and he's got 14. He's also got 15 line break assists, which is the third most. So as far as his stats go, he's humming. And just from that general playmaker point of view, heavily involved, kicking, defense is pretty good. He had one sort of noticeable miss yesterday, but whatever, we move on. But Sharks win 30 points to 14. I really liked the resilience they showed, Kieran. It was a bit like the Parramatta game last week. They let the team back into the game, and we're all thinking, oh, this could go either way. But thankfully, it worked out fine, and it's because of the one percenters, like the kick chase from Billy Burns on Garrick, Trindle there as well to get the try, changed the game, and then we ran away with it at the end with a couple of tries. But I thought all those little one percenters were the difference yesterday, Kieran.
Yeah, and you're seeing a real desire from the team. And I think we might have set an NRL record for players knocking themselves out, chasing down their own errors. You know, back to back weeks, we've had Siffer last week drop the ball and then absolutely made a beeline for that Parramatta player. Where if he connected on that properly, that guy's ribs are broken. Knocks himself out. Tricky, like to make that dive and to swat at that ball. Like I know it's a little thing and he didn't quite get it, but if you look at the replay, he was so close to dislodging that ball. And again, he lands face first in the ground. So it's not ideal to be making these errors, but it shows you these guys are not giving up on the play. Both of those guys made two big errors and they both chased down that play to try and affect the result. So those one percenters that you're talking about, absolutely key. And again, it's just showing them to these guys are believing, these guys are, getting a little bit angry about things. And, we've got centers dropping front rowers off kickoffs. How good was that?
And don't forget, last week, Trindle was the one that ankle tapped the player on the run so Talakai could. So that's two great examples. And yeah, the hit on that fella was unbelievable off the back fence. It was Iro and Billy Burns heavily involved. Billy Burns. Just looking at some of the stats for the game, Kieran, we completed at 79%, so not terrible, but can be improved on. I always like it in the 80s. We made 4 line breaks to 3. We made 9 offloads to 5. And so we only conceded 5 offloads. And as far as missed tackles go, that's gone up to 22, which is still pretty good. So in total, you have 27 missed tackles and ineffective tackles together. So I can live with that for sure. And overall, discipline was decent. Sort of gave him a little bit in the second half with penalties and restarts, but overall decent with the discipline. I thought particularly the first half was a lot better there. And as you said, a general desire just to sort of get the job done. Clearly the better team for probably 60 of the 80 minutes. The first Manly try was just weird, and the second try was some soft defense. So no dramas there, really. Let's talk about some more players. You mentioned Nico. He was outstanding. I didn't think we had a bad player out there. We'll talk about Will Kennedy a little bit down the track because we've got some things to talk about there. Let's talk about Fonua Blake. You mentioned him before. He ran for 150 meters. He busted 4 tackles. He made 16 tackles. He played for 50 minutes. So that's a great stint. It's games like yesterday, Kieran, where you know why he's getting the big bucks and why he has the reputation. And I liked the way he played yesterday too. Kind of hard, kind of fun, nothing silly. When the silly stuff happened, he was involved, but he wasn't making it worse. What did you think of AFB?
I think that second stint when he came back on, the game was kind of not in the balance, but Manly had got a bit of momentum. Manly was feeling confident, and then he comes back on, and you could just feel the Sharks players kind of felt that level of, oh, it's okay, he's back here now, right? And so he's kind of got that big brother feel, I think, for a lot of the players, because when you got a guy like him who attracts so many defenders when he's got the ball, and guys just don't want to run at. Like, it just makes everybody feel a lot bigger, a lot stronger, a lot more confident. So that's exactly why we've bought him, right? Because our forward pack was kind of lacking that kind of intimidation, that kind of spark player. And him doing that job, this allows all the other forwards to kind of play their roles. And I think we saw that a little bit with guys like Hamlin Ueli coming off the bench. He was able to do a succinct role where he was very good in that. He had a drop ball close to the line, almost scored from a grubber that he put in. But having Fonua Blake do what he does, I think just frees up a lot of people to not have so much responsibility, because in the past, we were expecting Toby, Hamanueli, Kafusi to really be those guys when that might not suit their skill set. So, Fonua Blake is slowly building a really good season. I've seen some people say online they expect a little bit more from him and things like that, but I couldn't be happier with what we've got from Fonua Blake. And again, we have a lot of front rowers, right? So just getting that rotation right, I think is going to be key for us.
And as you said, it drips down because you got Britton Nickera making 100 meters, which he doesn't really do. Cam McInnes 100 meters. Jesse Colquhoun in 38 minutes ran for 115 meters, made 23 tackles.
Jeez.
And BHU played probably his longest stint in years, 26 minutes for 100 meters, 14 tackles, no misses. So it's definitely drip feeding down to get these middles to lift even more on what they usually do. Let's go straight to him. Jesse Colquhoun. I mean, he's fan favorite now already after 2 games back after a long stint off the field. 38 minutes. He had 11 runs, 114 meters. 44 of those were post contact. 23 tackles, 1 miss. So if you look at those stats, they're really good. But what I'm looking at is the way he runs that ball. He's a hard ass. He's hard to stop. He's mobile. And it's hard not to get too excited about him because even in the press conference, you could see Fitzy was really frothing. And then McInnes was too, but he was the one out of the two of them to sort of calm the farm a little bit on it, saying, well, it's early days. I don't know how you keep him out of the 17 because it's exactly what we want and what we need. It's up to him to stay healthy on the field, which he has not a lot of control over given his history, but there is nothing more this guy could be doing.
Yeah, I urge every Sharks fan to go and watch that press conference just for the part on Jesse. And when Fitzy was talking about it, and I think Fitzy even said 2 years ago, Jesse was in my best 17. And, he's had a run of injuries and all those type of things.
I,
But
I, I need people to go have a look, but I think he said starting. I may
yeah,
be wrong there.
I think he said starting in my best 17. And that's the time we had Finucane and a couple of other guys too. So I don't know if maybe he was in that front row position, but as a 13, I think he's really good for us. And I don't know what we do with the Cam situation because given he's our captain and obviously how Fitz feels about him, we're not going to see that change.
And he
But
was terrific yesterday, to be fair.
yeah, but I just love the ball playing of Jesse as well. There was one instance where Jesse caught it in the middle of the field, ran probably about 5, and then did a really decent, it was like a long ball for a middle, which we don't see. And if you watch some of the other podcasts that kind of break down, the Sharks attack, often they sort of say the issue that we kind of run in is that our forwards, when they run together, Cam doesn't have that intimidation factor because he doesn't have the size. So the runner that runs off Cam is often not believing it because they're going, I'm going to get smashed here because they're not going to take Cam as a threat. So when you have a big body like Jesse doing it and then doing a short ball onto like a Fanua Blake or whoever it is, that's damaging, right? So I think for us, I know we'll talk about the Will situation later.
Yeah.
Jesse's off contract and we've got to get that sorted out pretty soon.
He's off
But
contract? Are you
I'm sure
sure?
they will.
Are you sure he's
Yeah,
off?
so he would let me double check that in the background here, but he was off unless we've re-signed him this year. I believe he was off contract because he done a 1 year deal off the back of his
I
injury.
thought he was. I thought he was there till the end of 26. You can check that while we go ahead. Hopefully, I'm right. You're wrong.
I would like that
But-
too, but again, these expansion clubs are going to cause chaos, mate.
oh well, we're not letting
Yeah,
him go.
he's so all right. So he's signed until the end of 2026, so he can start negotiating with teams on the 1st of November.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay. So we've got him. Yeah. Okay. I gotcha. Well, I suggest to you he's not going anywhere, and
Yes.
I don't know if he's going to become that kind of player that's hot on the market or not. I mean, people working for clubs watch the games a lot closer than what you and I do for that reason. It's like different reasons they watch it a bit differently. So maybe he is hot property. I got no idea, but I would be very surprised if he was let
The,
go, even to shop around. To be honest,
the way Fitzy was talking about him, he's not going anywhere.
The other thing I liked about the Fitzy press conference, and again, we urge you to go watch this one, is because he mentioned learning lessons. And that made me sort of chuckle because all the fans hate it when he says it. But he actually was right, saying that we learnt from close games this year how to get it done now. Now, it wasn't a guarantee that every week's going to be the same in close games. But he said, we've learnt from the Tigers game. We've learnt from the Penrith game. We've learnt from the Canberra game. So I think against Para and against Manly, they're not bad examples of learning how to shut out a game when the team gets back into it. Whether it's circumstance, whether it's coincidence, I don't know. But I thought that was him, without meaning to be funny. I just felt for all the fans who shudder whenever he says those words because it was actually true.
So the one part I picked up on the lessons thing was there was a couple of instances with Nico, right? So the first one was when we make the break where it was Nicola, Nico gets out, does the kick because there's no fullback there, right? Now we've seen half breaks and things like that before, and we've often criticized the Sharks a lot on this podcast for not kicking the ball, right? And that kick was one example. Another example was we're up by 6. I think there's like 10 or so to go. Like it's towards the back end of the game. Nico lines up for a field goal in front. Okay. Now, Manly rush off the line. Nico says, "Nope, don't like this." Spins it out to Burns. We end up scoring, right? So, again, that's another example of that lesson because in the past, we've just jammed that field goal because we're just thinking we've got to go up by 7.
Yep.
So, those little moments there were just, I thought, 2 examples where they've actually shown that they have gone through these things and got to that point. And that for me was a real positive. And again, that calmness from Nico, I think, is a really good sign for us because Swindle had a bit of a quiet game and he's had a couple of quiet weeks, but Nico's looking unbelievable at the moment.
Yeah, and there is a calmness to what he's doing, which is awesome. And I just love the involvement. And it's not like some of those games you've seen him. Like I remember his first game against Canberra, like when he came to the club, and there's maybe a game against Melbourne. There's a few games there where he just was so urgent in what he was doing, it was all going pear-shaped. And it was kind of comical. It was like, will you just calm the hell down? Like, yes, you need the ball. And I'm talking rare. I'm talking 3 games in a however many game career at Cronulla. There was none of that yesterday and none of that this year. And it's really good to see. He's got the ball. He wants it. He wants to be heavily involved, but it's not crazy. It's not hogging the ball. He's choosing when to run, choosing when to pass. And yeah, he's on a really good cycle right now. Super happy with him. He kicked 5 out of 6. He's kicking really well. And I'm super happy. I don't know how he's going to pull up this week. I'm super happy with Tall Tom starting. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting one because Fitzy has not been one of those guys that kind of plays those games with the 17. Like normally, if you're named to start, you start, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what's behind that. We just don't name Tom as that starting player. It's no big deal, but I thought that was a little bit interesting. But when he landed, that looked really rough, and I thought, oh, this could be a long-term injury here. But he did play through it, and then they said in the second half, if we don't have to use him, we won't use him. So hopefully, he can pull up fine and, get through the next week. But we do have Talakai coming back this week too. So perhaps there's that spot on the bench where if Tom's not 100%, we can use Sifra in that same role.
Yeah, it's a good move. I know Oggy was a little bit banged up pre-game as well, so I'm not sure if that's a reason why or not, but I definitely know that Kafusi was not at 100% the past 2 weeks. Like, fine to play, and his meters yesterday were good, like he put in, but maybe there's just that less pressure on him to start with the impact and everything and the collisions. Maybe that's something to do with it, but it's worked out well because Hazelton and Kafusi, I really like those guys starting. And you look at the 17 from yesterday, Fanua Blake, Hazelton, Kafusi, Colquhoun, Hamlin Welly, like there's some big units there, dude. Like the only real small guys left are McInnes as a middle. McInnes is the only smaller middle.
Yeah, and again, you're going to bring Talakai back into that mix too. You're going to bring Toby back into that mix as well, right? So it's only going to get bigger, provided that we do change things. But I think, we haven't spoken the last couple of weeks because I've been away, but I think the interesting thing was 2 weeks ago when we moved Atkinson off the bench and Talakai was that utility for us, right? So I think that was kind of a signal from Fitzy that, okay, we're going to go with a bit more size now. We started with AFB and Tom, which is, 2 monsters. But then to have that bench with, Colquhoun, Talakai, and the like, and Hamlin Ueli, I think that was kind of that signal that maybe, look, this is how we're going to look to play. It's going to be interesting to see how we line up this week against the Storm because, their forward pack is, as elite as well. So it's going to be a really good game.
It's going to be fascinating. I've already got the popcorn out ready for different subject for how Fitzy fits 25 awesome guys into 17, particularly those forwards, because you said Toby's coming back. Okay, cool. Talakai's coming back. Okay, cool. I mean, you still have a guy like Tuku who's playing some minutes, not lately, but he's been playing some minutes this year. There are guys there ready to rock. Talakai's coming back. But then I look at yesterday and I've got Kafusi, Colquhoun, and Hamlin Welly on my bench. Hamlin Welly going really well. and I've got Dan Atkinson, who actually came on and played as a half, which was super handy. So they're not all going to fit into the 17. Now, I know they're not always fit and they're not always available due to suspension or origin or rep or whatever, but international football, but they don't fit. So it's going to be unbelievable viewing for us as fans to see what he does and why he does it. And you're going to have some very good players. They may not be playing Cup, but they won't be playing in NRL.
We've got guys in New South Wales Cup like Puru, who is hitting some good form as well, right? So
Yeah,
again, there's a lot of guys in the mix here to make the team. And I think one of the interesting things during the week was we re-signed the half Puru and we
yep,
re-signed Vayela in
yep,
the centers, right? So again, these are two guys who are really playing quite well in the lower grades. They've had some really good history in the lower grades at at the Sharks and at other clubs. So for us to be able to keep and extend these people, people always ask all the time, like, "Oh, do you think so and so is going to stay? Do you think so and so is going to go?" And my answer all the time is they all want to stay. Like they all want to be part of this team. And there's going to be some upset feelings because guys don't make the squad. But I saw some
yeah,
vision after the game, and Puru, who was 18th man, was laughing and hugging players in the sheds, like over the moon for the boys and the team, right? So again,
yeah.
it does become a bit of a throwaway line about connection and all that type of stuff that Fitz bangs on about. But when you're building a club and when you're building, a team to go in the same direction, you need that because you don't need your star signings and star players' dads out on Instagram saying activate your get out clause and all this type of stuff that you see at other clubs. Because again, we're quite a harmonious group, right? So again, let's just keep building this. Let's hopefully get everybody fit and then
So,
win all 3 grades.
so I only saw a snippet of it, and just tell me as briefly as you can. Was that Luai's dad with a get
Yeah,
out clause photo or something
activated.
next to his son?
Yes. He
Oh
put it
my
up on his
god!
Instagram story. That's just, it was like there was no picture. It was just text. It said, get out clause activated with like a boom emoji and like a laughing face or something like that. And then obviously someone's like, dude, take that down. And it went down pretty quickly, but
He
Fox
he
Sports
he
got it.
might he might have a great sense of humor. He might just be completely taking the mickey. That's fine. Obviously, it's going to cause some ripples. Hopefully, that's all it is. Um, yeah, so we'll leave that one there. But you're right. Compared to that, we are the happiest club in the world. And it doesn't mean they're not competing. They're all competing for a spot. Hohepa's a great example. I'm glad you brought him up because he's done really well in lower grades. He's come here from Canberra looking for a chance. He hasn't got that chance yet, but from good trial form, he played in the All-Stars game and he's kind of next man up. He knows that and he'll get his time. But he's a great example, much like Billy Burns, of guys that will only play a handful of games every year if everything's going well, but he might get a ring at the end of it. And he kind of knows that. And you look at Hohepa's social media, there's not a happier, more content guy in the world, living in the Shire with his family, with his brother by his side. Like, it's a good story. So the fact they've signed the brother, who, I mean, as far as talent wise, week to week is probably the lesser of the two. It's a good sign for both of them that I think Hohepa will get another deal if the money all works out. Kieran, let's get to money. We can come back to Manly if you choose to, but let's get to money. Or actually, we'll incorporate it. So, Will Kennedy, you and I don't do much. What's the word? We don't have production meetings about this show. We just sort of tend to meet for a coffee and we'll talk. I've got my coffee here, by the way, in case anyone thinks this is just a prop or whatever. It's, yeah.
I'm
So,
really into these Hunted Brew ones from Woolly. They're really good.
yeah, can we get some sponsorship on that? Or we don't have production meetings. And one of the first things you said to me a second before we hit record was something akin to the fact that you weren't happy overly with Will Kennedy's performance yesterday. And I went, oh, I thought he was okay. I thought he was fine. He wasn't 10 out of 10, and he may not have jagged the point in the Dally M's, but I didn't really have a problem with him. But you did mention a few drop balls, a few, clinks in attack, etc. And then we got to talk about the contract situation. And I didn't think his world fell apart yesterday. I was a little bit worried about it because elephant in the room is there was a story released on Saturday about we allegedly only have 300,000 in the cap for next year to offer him, and that may not be enough. And that got released to the press by someone or other, and then the game was yesterday. I thought he was fine in the game yesterday. I thought he was heavily marked. That's why he wasn't probably as elite as what he has been. There were a few spilt balls. A couple were because he was held back. A couple weren't penalised. I didn't think there was a lot of clean, bad drops. But I'd love to hear what you thought of him and give me a different perspective on what I'm seeing, please.
So I pulled up the Dally M votes. So Nico got 6, Fanua Blake got 2, Will Kennedy got 2. So Will Kennedy, so he's up to 29 points. So he's still leading the Dally M's, right?
Okay.
Ben Travojevic got 1. I thought he was probably Manly's worst player. I don't understand how he got 1.
He got one for he got one for being a bully.
Yeah, well, wasn't that silly? And then Blake Brayley got 1, Blake Brayley was unbelievable yesterday too. And I think he's really unlocked Nico's form. But sticking with Will, I think Will's last 6-7 weeks or so have been so astronomically good and, for me personally, unexpected that now whenever he gets the ball, especially on kick returns now, I'm expecting a half break almost every single time now because I've just seen it so often in the last few weeks, right? So I think this was a bit of he was heavily marked in this game, which, freed up other players, which was a fantastic thing for us. Because again, he burnt them a few weeks ago in Perth. Like that was the Will Kennedy show a few weeks ago in Perth, right? So they doubled down on that and really went after him. But I did think it was a quieter game for Will, but I have not seen the replay. Mother's Day, I was quite busy, so I haven't got a chance to watch that back yet. But I'm going to make a real conscious effort to go back and to watch Will specifically because, he picked up 2 Dally M points and, maybe I didn't see something there. But, we just didn't see those, long-range breaks from Will or setting up tries or scoring tries like we have the last few weeks. So I was a little bit disappointed.
I do think looking at the team right now, I think that the 2 points is a little bit generous because I would have had Iro in front of him. I would have had Ronaldo in front of him. I would have had, from the guys you haven't mentioned, Burns in front of him.
Yeah.
And I might have had Jesse Colquhoun in front of him, just to be perfectly honest. So there could be a bit of that favoritism thing there where, or not favoritism, that thing where it's in the person's memory bank that, Will Kennedy's leading. I'm going to watch Will Kennedy. He's pretty good. He can get, that's just how it works sometimes. But good luck to him. Hopefully he wins the whole thing. That'd be amazing. But I thought I saw the game a little bit differently to you as far as just his performance when I thought it was a little bit better. But like I say, I didn't think it was 2-point kind of worthy from a Dally M point of view. I'm just pulling up the judiciary report that's come out. And we are all sweet. No worries with judiciary, which is good. Not that I thought we did, but just double checking for everyone live on air. So back to Will Kennedy. Salary cap, allegedly 300K there for him. Now, you're the salary cap guru on this podcast. How do they make it work? Say they want to sign him for 2 years with a third option, but they've only allegedly got 300K. How do you make that work?
Well, first of all, I just don't believe that figure for 1 second. And I get this is a bit of maybe some paper napkin maths that somebody's done like Buzz, because often he's come out with his own figures of what he values players at and things like that too, right?
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things, right? Number one, the Sharks do not leak anything. And, we've had signings like Fanua Blake, for example, right? That, Mooney came out and said, we plan this roster 3 to 4 years in advance, right? So my thinking with that is if we weren't going to keep Will, we would have let Will know that already, right? We would have said, hey, Will, we're going to go with Ison. We have extended Ison already this year, but again, he's on a fraction of the money that Will would be on. So really, I think Will's form has absolutely blown everybody off the park, and now they're probably trying to work out what can we actually pay this guy that's a fair number. So the number that Buzz quoted in the paper was that Will's on 500,000 currently. Yeah. I was driving home from a Mother's Day lunch and I was listening to Dale Broman or something like that. They were talking about Will's not on anywhere near 500,000. So they were like, they think it's in the 350s or something like that range. I have no idea what he's on at all. And I don't think you're going to get that number out of the club. Like, the club's not going to go out there and just start talking about what people are earning. It's just not how we do business at the Sharks. So I
Yeah.
honestly think that if Will is the smartest option for Will, is there are two new teams coming in 27 and 28. He is free to go to a new club for 26 because, again, he's off contract now, right? So if I'm Will, I'm signing a 1, if not a 2-year deal to try and get Papua New Guinea or Perth into the bidding mix. Because if you look at majority of the teams in the NRL, they have established fullbacks, right? And in some cases, some teams have 2 or 3 fullbacks that are, vying for that position, right? So there is a line of thinking that maybe the Sharks kind of thought that nobody else is going to be in for Will, so we'll get to Will last. But then I also look at that number of 300,000, and I call absolute balderdash on that because, one, you have minimum contract values, and we would have to fill out a squad. I don't know what Billy Burns on, but I'm going to assume he's probably on a near minimum contract if, in that
Yeah.
ballpark, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have at least 3 or 4 of those guys that you're going to have to put into the squad. So right alone, that would take you over that $300,000 because I think the minimum is like 110 or 120 at the moment. I'm not quite 100% sure. We've also got guys like Stone Street off contract too, right? So you can't tell me that Mooney, who has built some of the best rosters in the NRL and some of the deepest rosters, like we are a very deep team at the moment, that he has not factored in Will Kennedy or Sam Stone Street's contract for next year. Like that's amateur stuff, and that's not the case, right? So I think it'll get done. I think that they'll find a way to make it happen. There is some stuff with NRL contracts around back-ending deals. So let's say hypothetically Will was on 500 now. We couldn't lodge a contract for, say, 300 and then ramp it up to 700, 900 down the line. So it
Right.
all averages out at the 5. So there is some ratchets and things like that in there. And there's also the fair player value. So NRL clubs basically have to kind of nominate that contract and almost justify why they're registering this contract at that value. And I think Will's form could play a part of that. But then the other thing is the NRL could look at it and go, well, who else is in for a fullback for $500,000 at the moment? There's no real clubs there. The only other thing I can think of is we have Toby and Hamlin-Uele coming off contract November 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And with the amount of middles that we have, maybe we sort of say to one of those guys, look, we need to look after Will, and thank you. If you can secure a long-term deal, all the best. But I'm not sure, mate.
So on the 300,000, I got the impression that maybe the story was hinting that they only had that for him and not in the cap. I could be completely wrong. Only the journalist probably knows what he meant. But so that could go either way. It might be 300 for Will, but there's a bunch for whoever else. I think you're right. I don't think there's just 300 left in the cap because that would seem to be very un-Mooney-like. On the tapping of the shoulder of a player, I think that is possible given the middles we have and given, with absolute respect, what we're getting back from the two guys that you've mentioned so far. Like there's a long way to go in the season, but as far as injuries and that kind of thing go, which they can't help, but they're both on a lot of money for guys that haven't played a lot of football since they've signed their deals. So you could see if that was the way they were going to go. I'm not sure if it is. We'll find out. But yeah, it's an interesting time for Will Kennedy and for the club, and they have to get it done. There's no other choice. What do you got there?
We also saw it last year, right, with Royce Hunt. So Royce Hunt was contracted for this season at the Sharks, and it works both ways because Royce was able to go out, get more money, and get a longer deal than we could have offered him, right? And Royce even spoke in the media that he was considering hanging it up at the end of this season at the Sharks because he loved the Sharks and didn't want to go elsewhere. But, he's got a family, and, Hamlin-Uele's got a young family. Will Kennedy's got a young family. So there's a lot of moving parts there. But when both parties want to get it done, it gets done. So Mooney has shown for years that he knows what he's doing. And there's often times where we go into seasons with open roster spots and with money still in the cap. Like we brought in Cam McInnes early, even though he was injured, but we did because it was the right thing for us to do and help him with his rehab. There's a couple of things you can do there with restructuring things and changing things around. So I wouldn't get too stressed, I think, is the biggest thing I would say right now. Because again, who else is in the market for a fullback right now?
I think it's one of those things where a journalist realized that the player was off contract, inquired, and realized he was coming first in the Dally M's. It is a story. Like, there's no doubt it's a story, but how much depth to that story there is, we're not sure. I am sure that this week it'll get asked by some media people again, to players and the coach. So we'll see if there's any more on that. Maybe to be resolved by then. We're not sure. The club works pretty quickly sometimes. So we'll wait and see on that. I'm of the belief of two things. It has to get done, but also they want to get it done. Now, why it has taken this long, I'm not sure. I don't know. But
the other thing I can think of is his run of form has kind of taken people by surprise, and maybe they're sort of looking at this going, what do we actually have to pay this guy? Because again, we re-signed Dyson back in February, right? So to me, that was a bit of our intention there, that, you know, we're going to wait and see how Will goes. So you're not going to go and spend that money in that case, right? We signed for Noah Blake in December of 2022 or 2023, sorry. So like we knew that this guy was coming in on this big bucks for a long time. It's not as if this has caught us by surprise. And every time we've had our backline come up off contract, the same story gets run. And I remember this back in 21 or 22 when Ramian, Katoa, Ronaldo, they're all off contract. And it was like, they can't possibly keep them all. And they did. But this is the fact that the Sharks don't sign a lot of outside players. And when we do, it's guys like Burns and you know, we did sign for Noah Blake, sure, but we moved on Jack Williams and we moved on Royce Hunt, which were, again, two guys that we probably weren't planning to move on, right? So Will's been in our system for a super long time. He's best mates with guys like Will Kennedy, who's just re-signed. Sorry, Braden Trindle, who's just re-signed. And Trindle could have got a lot more money on the open market too. So these guys are super loyal to the club and they want to stay. It'll get done. And the one thing the Sharks normally do is they announce re-signings typically that are of a bigger nature before home games. To try and get that little bit of a buzz and to get that little bit of extra ticket sales. So, you know, I'm not saying it's going to get done this week, but I normally expect re-signings to happen before home games. I don't expect them to happen before away games. I know we just did that last week, but that was kind of on the lower end.
Yeah. Now, on him signing for a little bit less to stay where he likes and loves and knows, that's absolutely possible. Like that happens a lot, as you said, with Trindle, and you know, there might be another club, say Perth, who says, hey, we want you for this amount. But he looks at all the factors. He's like, well, I've got to move my family across the country to a place I don't know, with no family, whatever, and no support, new system, new staff, the whole thing. Not sure what the coach is like. Maybe that is worth not signing for 100,000 more. Maybe it's worth that to this particular person. Someone else might go, no, I'm going to chase the money. And there's no right or wrong there. It's up to the individual. But I do think that there, with Will Kennedy in particular, and I do not know him. He's not my mate. I've interviewed him probably 10 times. He's very, you know, I know him to say hello. He's really nice to my kid the other week. Like, I know him on that level. So I'm not claiming to know him on any other level. But what I do know about him is he's a loyal dude. And if there's anyone in that team that's going to take a little bit less to stay somewhere familiar, it's Will Kennedy. So whether he does or doesn't, I can't tell you. But I would be banking on it for that reason alone.
Yeah. And I have seen a lot of talk about the Bears and all this type of stuff, but the Bears are not coming in until 2027. So Will still needs a contract for 2026. And in 2027, Will be 30 years old. So if you look at the style of fullbacks that are coming through right now, they are that smaller, younger, KO Weeks, you know, Ison type body shape, you know, zippy and all that type of stuff. So it's going to be interesting. But again, I look at that and I say, well, Will's 28 now. And, you know, if you look at the current NRL clubs that are looking for a fullback for 2026 where he can sign for, I could see a scenario where he does do a 1-year deal with the Sharks to see what the Perth situation looks like because he wants to keep his options open. And that's totally fair for him because he would be 30 in 2027, right? So, does a new franchise want a 30-year-old fullback? I'm not sure.
Well, the other thing about the 1-year deal is you sign 1 year for the Sharks, and when you sign it, you're leading the Dally M's after 10 rounds. So not after 2 rounds, after 10 rounds. That's almost half a season more. Well, it's a chunk of the season at least. If you win the comp, maybe it's close to a third. But you know what I'm saying? It's not a fluke. He's put in the hard work. He's had mostly great games out of the 10. Sign the 1-year deal when you're leading the Dally M's, and then if you even have 6 to 7 out of 10 games for the rest of the year and next year until you sign somewhere else, you're still going to be of value. You're still going to be a first grade fullback. You're not going to decline that much. Someone's going to go, I don't think so. So it would make a lot of sense to do the 1-year deal if you're looking at going somewhere else, because I don't think the Sharks want to necessarily have Will until he's 33. I don't think that's necessarily on their agenda. If he plays like this until he's age 33, well, different story. But I think that is a great idea from a personal point of view for him to sign the 1-year deal and to bet on himself. And then he might get a really big payday at one of the new
Yeah.
places.
And also, too, if he signs the 1-year deal, he would be able to talk to clubs again in November. So
Yeah. So
effectively,
it's
he
not that.
gives himself that
Yeah.
security of I've got another 12 months here in a familiar, safe environment. He's got 29 points on the Dally M leaderboard. 26 is Terrell May, 24 is Tedesco and Luke Metcalf, 23 is Payne Haas, and then it drops down to 20 points, Jai Gray, Cameron Munson, and Ryan Pappenhausen. So he's in some really good,
Yeah.
company there. But again, if he signs that 1-year deal, he basically locked himself in, but created an opportunity to potentially cash in because it's going
Yeah.
to come down to what the Bears want. Because the Bears might want some experience, which Will would be about 150 games into his career then, at 30 years of age. Or do they want a Jai Gray or a Chevy Stewart or a Liam Eisen or something like that? I'm not sure. But it also gives Will a chance to go, you know what? I am now lining up my contract a little bit closer to Eisen's. And I think Eisen's did a 2-year extension. So again, that's who he's competing against for this spot at the Sharks. So if he can keep playing at the level that he's playing at, he'll beat out an Eisen and he'll keep his spot. So
Yeah.
I think a 1-year deal makes sense for him.
And you're right. I was thinking about a 1-year deal meant he signs next year into halfway into the season. It's like, no, in November, November 1. So really, he just has to
6 months.
If he keeps up, he's not going to drop to a 6 out of 10. I wouldn't have thought as a player this year. If he can go at like 7 out of 10 every week or more, which he's doing, yeah, that's happy days for Will from a personal point of view. I'm a huge fan of what he does. I think it's a great story. I love the fact that his dad was such a country rugby league legend. He played NRL, did a bunch of the NRL as well, but just there was a story about him on the weekend. He played until I think his early 50s. They
Yeah.
played a game together, and you could tell like he's a chip off the old block. Like he's a good family guy, Will, and the club loves him, the players love him. So it's going to be really interesting because he has surprised a lot of people with his form. And again, even yesterday, I didn't think he was that far behind the best out there. Certainly not at his best, but I was super happy to see him play yesterday like he did. Kieran, we're finally coming home, man. It's exciting. We're on the road now. Like it's Mondays we record this. Saturday's going to come around and we'll be there cheering on the greatest club in the history of the world. We cannot wait. And what better way to do it than play the best team in the comp, the Melbourne Storm. They only racked up 64 points and conceded none on the weekend. Holy smokes. Now, to be fair, the West Tigers were diabolical. They wasted a lot of money traveling down there on planes and hotels and transfers and the whole thing because it wasn't worth it. They should have stayed at home. I feel sorry for the fans that went down there. I know a few that actually went down there, which is just crazy to even think that, but good on them for doing it. But that's who we're playing. But the bigger picture for me is we're coming home to play at home. I cannot wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think there's going to be a lot of emotion involved because the team is riding pretty high. They're, 4 out of 5, I think, or 3 out of 4 wins, whatever the stat is. And generally having a good year. There's some losses. Okay. West Tigers, Canberra, I get it. Some losses that we shouldn't have had. But generally, they're in a good space, relatively injury-free. It's going to be a sellout. If you haven't got a ticket, grab one this morning because you don't want to miss out. It's going to be awesome. How you feeling? I know how much you love a home game more than anyone. I know how much you love. What I'm saying is, out of everyone in this world, I know you best as far as how much you love a home game. Get my language right. And you must be pumped.
I cannot wait. It feels like an absolute lifetime. And my daughter now plays soccer and she plays for the Stingrays, which play next door to Shark Park. And I was with some of the dads there and they're all Sharks fans too. And they're like, when was the last time we went to a game? And then, one of them said, I think I've only been to one all season because they've been traveling and things like that too. So it's going to be a really good chance for us to set our season up. And we've kind of spoke about this for a while, that downward run. And I think the Melbourne game, we play them again in 4 weeks' time. It's around June 30th, tax time. That's why I know that one. And that's, I think, our last proper away game, right? So then after that, it's just basically Sydney. I think Newcastle is probably the first we go. We've already done Newcastle. So, yeah, we're staying in Sydney. So, again, Central Coast, which I think we do. But
Yep.
I think this week's going to be amazing. I feel like I've not been at Shark Park. I miss the food vans. I miss going to Hairy Man's before it.
Yes.
I can't wait. I'm trying to negotiate with the wife for what time I can get out of the house. But if I can get out at midday, I will. But I'll probably get out closer to around 5 o'clock, 5:30. But I can't wait. Hopefully the weather's good. Let me just check the forecast right now because I think there's a bit of rain this week around. Yeah, it's raining every single day until Sunday. How good is that? We're back at Shark Park, baby.
This is what we do. Yeah, this is how we roll. Now you can tell Grace you'll be out before 5:30 because we're going to meet at the Hairy Man's a little bit earlier than that. We'll confirm a time, but it will be earlier than 5:30. And you and I, and hopefully a few other SharkCasters will be hanging out. And we want to hang out with our listeners. Unofficial, but making it official. Come down to the Hairy Man's. We'll tell you more about it as the week goes by. So stay tuned to the shows and especially to the socials. But we want to hang out and talk Sharks before the game. I am relatively sure there is not a game beforehand at the Oval, Kieran. I'll need to confirm that. I wonder if I can do that as I talk to you. Maybe I can do that while we talk.
Is Jersey Flegg playing somewhere else, are they?
I think there's a bye.
Wow, I don't think I can't even remember the last time I went to Shark Park and I didn't see a pre-game before the game. Maybe there was one earlier in the season, I think.
Here we go. Let's have a look. Yeah, so okay, I'm incorrect. There is a cup game on. It's the Harrigan Cup, De La Salle versus Western Suburbs Devils. Now, what does that mean to you?
I'm not a local league guy. I'm an import to the Shire, so I'm not that. But it is Fafita. Fafita's playing for Dila, isn't he?
Okay, if he's playing for Dila, we might need to. Is that the actual comp though? Like we'll need to.
I think there might be a different comp because they run that might be the competition where that young fella with the distasteful tattoo got in some trouble with. I think maybe that's the secondary comp. It's not just a Shire based comp. It's like a regional Sydney comp. I'm not sure.
You know what? I'm just going to do this live on air because we need to get this right for our listeners. I'm going back to last weekend.
But if Fafita is playing for that, that'd be unreal. He's playing in the second row. I saw him score a try from about 60 out the other day on Instagram.
Team list. I'm looking at the team list. Oh, dude, I can see a Wyndham Peachy.
Yeah, Wyndham Peachy, David.
I can see a Jack A. Williams. Someone was asking about him the other day. Cooper Hannay, Kurt Dillon. There's no Fafita, but there's no Fafita, but okay. Stay tuned because if Fafita's playing, we need to be there. But anyway, the point is we're going to be out and about. If we're not going to be at the Hairy Man, we'll be at the stadium. So we'll work it out. Stay with us. That's for sure. Now, we're playing a Storm, Kieran. It's a real challenge. And I think that's totally okay. We're trying to win the comp, so we've got to beat everyone, no matter where and when. How are you feeling leading into the game?
Zero confidence. I'm going to be honest with you, Sam. I would have
Why?
loved to
Why
have
zero?
built that up
What?
a bit more. Whenever we play Melbourne, I have zero confidence. You and I have cancelled trips to Melbourne because I have zero confidence. It's penciled in for this year, so
Look,
I look
yeah,
forward to
that
that.
went
But
so well last year for us, didn't it?
I know,
Like Homer
I know.
Simpson, the greatest game, and I missed it.
I know. So look, I think whenever you beat Melbourne and they get a chance to play you again, I think it's a bit of a concern. But we showed last year we could do it. So back at Shark Park, I'm really hopeful that the weather is not too bad. Saturday night at Shark Park in May can be a little bit miserable sometimes, but
It'll be
yeah,
fine,
look,
dude.
if we can control the ball, if we can keep possession and not drop the ball, if we can start like we did against Manly and even the second half against Manly, then we'll be in it up to our eyeballs. Hopefully Harry Grant isn't playing because Harry Grant and Munster are two guys that always just seem to carve us up. So
Yeah.
shut down Munster, shut down, potentially Harry Grant if he's playing, and the Sharks are in for a real shot. Because again, we have a really good team, and we've got the players to do it. It's just we need to see them consistently do that, and then I'll feel a little bit more confident.
I sometimes just can't give up on something, and I'm looking at these team lists from the De La Salle Cup. I found a Jackson Ferris in there,
Jackson
but
Ferris.
I haven't found Fafita, so maybe it's a different grade or something. And I could be wrong. People
Yeah.
will definitely tell me if I'm wrong, but I haven't found Fafita on the team list. But there's a stack of good players there, which is fun. So that game is kicking off at 5:10 p.m. on Saturday. But more to your point, I'm a little concerned that you don't think we have much of a chance. I think that, I mean, you sort of changed tune there when you describe what's going on in your head. So I appreciate that. But I think there is no reason why we can't win this game. Like Melbourne are unbelievable. I get that. But don't worry about last week, for example, to
Yeah.
anyone who's worried about it, because the West Tigers were literally not there.
Yeah, and I think Melbourne were coming off a bad loss, and Melbourne's had a couple of bad performances this year. So Melbourne aren't the Melbourne of years gone by. But in saying that, they are the one team that really does scare me because when they put it together, I just look at that spine with Pappenhouse and Hughes, Munster, Grant, like they've got strike all over the park. So I realistically think Melbourne's the best team in the NRL.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I don't think that we can't become the best team. I just need to see a little bit more from the Sharks to do it. And again, if we can get Ronaldo to get in someone's head like what he did to Garrick on the weekend, then you never know, right? Because that guy's going to be having absolute nightmares of Ronnie. So if we get a performance like that from Ronnie and not like some of the other ones we've had where he's a little bit more rocks than diamonds, we'll be a real shot. So I'm pumped.
Important to note, like Andrew Voss noted in the call on Fox and KO, that Ronaldo didn't start it. Old mate Garrick was going off his chops about Will Kennedy and all sorts of other things. Ronaldo just finished it off, and it was the easiest setup ever for Ronaldo. He had a great day out because he actually wasn't the instigator at all.
I think the person who enjoyed Ronaldo versus Garrick more than anybody on this planet was Billy Burns. Because Burns had an absolute field day whenever something Garrick did. He was
With
the
that
one guy standing at the top of him.
try, that he conceded was Billy Burns was just there laughing. I think Billy Burns kind of started that whole hullabaloo after the try. I loved how AFB just came in and he was sort of pushing and shoving, but also calming everyone at the same time. And he was saying to the ref, come on, just award the try.
He was like
and
pleading with him, like, come on, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
I think we need some big cutouts of him doing after the try, the thing. I think Gary got another photo of that, but that's his go-to, the AFB. Man, he's making a difference. I'm looking forward to the game. I think that, I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat it. Like, if we don't play well, they'll do a number on us. It won't be 64-0, but they could put 28 points on us or something easily if we don't turn up. But there is no reason to think this team won't turn up. And I think the only kind of thing that I'm unsure about is, remember last year with the Penrith 42-0 and how that was the game where we were going to prove we were premiership contenders. Or sorry, not we were going to prove, but the media pushed it like that. I think that's starting probably from this morning, and it'll ramp up, look for your 360s, etc. And that's their job, to build an event so people watch it. So I'm not putting any shade on those guys and girls, but that carries over to the fans. That carries over to the team somewhat when they're asked at press conferences, hey, is this a line in the sand for you to see how you're going, how you're traveling? And of course it is. But it doesn't mean if they lose by 12 points or by however many points that they can't go on and do something special in October. So I don't want to fall into that trap, but also I'm not going to say it doesn't mean anything and it's just another game, because I do think it's a little bit different to just another game, because we're sitting in fifth, we're hyping up this team, we're loving what they're doing. So it is a test somewhat is what I would say.
I think maybe I'm a little bit jaded from the last time we went to Shark Park. So I just went back and looked on my phone just then. It was back in March. That's how long ago it's been since we played at Sharks Park against the Bulldogs, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you said to me we're playing the Bulldogs this week, I'd be supremely confident that we could get the job done, because I genuinely think we are a better team than the Bulldogs. But there was that kind of expectation because we had a few, like the game against Penrith, here or there, we were in it to our eyeballs, didn't get the job done. Then, there was a couple of good performances after that. Looked like, okay, well, we've not let the travel and all that type of stuff affect us, like the win up in North Queensland, all that type of stuff. That Bulldogs game was set up for us to make a good statement, and we missed the mark there, right? So I think for us, we've got to make sure that they start really well and they can't fall behind, because you see that sometimes. And I know we just saw a weekend of performances where teams came back from halftime deficits and all sorts of craziness. But I think for us, if we're going to beat the Storm, we've got to get off to a really good start and to really control it and not let the occasion get to us. And I think sometimes at Shark Park over the last 2 years, maybe ever since that Cowboys semi, there's been that sense of occasion. And then I go back to the Warriors game the year before, and you kind of just get a little bit deflated. And I feel a little bit more confident when we're not at Shark Park at the moment, even though our record at Shark Park's been typically quite good. But I think it's maybe that sense of occasion and all that type of stuff. So I love for us to make a real statement at Shark Park and to get it back to how it was back in 2022, when it was just that, I think they lost maybe one game there all season or something like that. And it was just absolutely rocking. And then we've had a little bit of things here and there, but this is the chance to do it. And, come kickoff, everyone's expectations will be sky high and we'll be expecting them to win. So fingers crossed that we can get the job done.
Absolutely. And it's going to be, it's going to be a cracker of a game. And just, I think the atmosphere will be great. Get out there if you can get a ticket, and, let your feelings be known in a very, mature, adult, but fun way. Like, let Melbourne know that you're there to support the Sharks, because it's no use we all just sit around and, I've said it before, we talk about how our day was and, how the kids went at soccer that morning. Like, it's no, we're there to watch the footy and let your feelings be known. If someone starts a chant that you would like, get involved with the chant. If someone does the hand clap, just get involved. Let's let them know that it's a place to fear, because it's all very well for the team to come out and dominate, which they do a lot of the time there, but it's got to feel like a home game. Like, the club has now shown you that they can play away from home and be successful in all sorts of manners of the word, successful on and off the field. I think it's time that we let management know this is our home. This is where we want to be. Let's turn up. Let's sell out the place. Let's buy the food, eat it, drink the drink. But more importantly, let's let them know it's Shark Park, because even going back, and I hate to say it sometimes, but I like to go there as well. It's a love-hate thing, 2016. Like, you weren't going to beat us there that year. Now, I know it was an amazing championship team, but it didn't matter. Like, you weren't allowed to win down there. So I really want that vibe for the Storm game this week. And it's going to be a big challenge, but we're up for it, man. I know this team's up for it. They're humming along nicely. It'd be interesting to see the teams that are named from both sides from both teams. But it's going to be a good one. Kieran, anything else going on we need to talk about?
I think we've covered most things today. Looking forward to catching up with people, grabbing some beers on Saturday. But I think just one last thing on Shark Park is be like the great SharkCast listener, Mr. Horn, who got photographed hanging over the fence, giving it to Cam Smith when he got sin-binned. And if everyone's acting like that, it'll be a great atmosphere on Saturday night.
Yeah, and Mr. Horn definitely acts above board. He's loud, he's boisterous, but it's all above board. And he's been known to hang out over that side of the railing for a number of people who've been sin binned or sent off, but most notably Cam Smith, absolutely. And yeah, let's not forget that this is the team that we've had so many great battles with, and it's a deep respect. I have a deep respect for this club, honestly, for the Melbourne Storm. Like, they're an amazing club. Bellamy's an amazing coach. They've got amazing players, but you know, we beat them in a grand final. They've burnt us many times before. So it's going to be some good vibes, good feelings. Make sure you stay tuned to our podcast because we're going to just cover it as best we can throughout. So stick with us, subscribe wherever you can subscribe and follow us wherever you can follow us. We really appreciate all that kind of thing. Kieran, I will see you soon. We'll let everyone know what we're going to do Saturday. But at this stage, we'll go to the Hairy Man's and have some drinks. If you're not a drinker, like some of our listeners are not drinkers, you can have soft drinks, water, come along. It's all good. Like, it's not going to be
get some food.
Get some food. It's not going to be crazy. We're just going to be very friendly talk about football coming up and that kind of thing. So don't be intimidated by the fact we're going to say we're going to have 1,000 beers. It's like, no, we're gonna have a good time. Is what we're gonna do. So stay tuned.
We can't have 1,000 beers. We got to get up and parent the next day, so we're not getting smashed.
Yeah. We're not, but there are obviously ways around that as well. But let us wind up now, Kieran. Great to talk to you, my friend. Great to have your show back. So hopefully we can do this more regularly. We'll see how the time allows both you and I. And we'll be back with more SharkCast before you know it. Thanks for everyone who tuned into the live stream last night. It was incredible. You guys make me feel so welcomed to do things like that. So keep calling in and keep commenting and all that kind of stuff, and we'll keep doing it for sure, including this week against the Storms. So, SharkCast pod, catching up with Kieran over coffee about Cronulla. Signing out. Kieran, have a great week until we speak to you next. Everyone else, take care. And I'm going to play the song on the audio version of this podcast. Let's go. Can't wait. Saturday night. Sharks v Storm. Up.